theme park owners did experimental work, leaving only the worst ones here.
This was such an immersive experience. I got to experience it for the first time at the premiere.
Oh, wow.
On that massive screen, hearing that John Williams iconic score, hearing all those cheers. I guess I'll start there with you. When you get to premiere a film like this in front of an audience like that is so receptive, it's almost like a theater atmosphere. You get to hear those live, in real time reactions to some of these epic scenes you created. How does that feel as a director?
It's shocking, because you just think you're going to get through a whole movie with silence, right? Maybe a couple of laughs with some jokes that are in there, but we were getting gasps, and there was applause at various moments during, the end of set pieces and stuff. And I was sitting there thinking, this is never going to happen again. Like, I'm not going to be in this situation where it's going to be such a great crowd that's so vocal, because there's so much love for this, Jurassic franchise. Scarlett always said, wait till you get to New York. There's no crowd like it, and she was kind of right. I also got paranoid that the sound designers in the Dolby Atmos had put all these crowd reactions in, and I actually said afterwards, I was like, the studio should start putting crowd reactions into the mix, of the sound mix, because people wouldn't know. They would just think, oh, they're clapping, I'm gonna clap, It would be a good effect. They put laughter on TV shows, you know what I mean? Why not?
That's true. It's to create the theater atmosphere, but that's because the theater atmosphere can't be replicated in a home. You have to go and you have to be surrounded by strangers and have that shared experience. I want to flash back to when this movie was first getting pitched. It was around the time of Dominion, where Spielberg called up Kep and said, would you want to return to the franchise? And he got to writing on the script. And he developed what was said in the press notes as the 9 commandments of the Jurassic World franchise. They said that they're kept under wraps. You don't have to spoil for me what those 9 commandments are, but are you privy to those 9 rules?
No. He would just bring them out when he needed to win an argument. So he would be like, well, commandment number 4. and so I only heard about 2 of them. I think one of them was something like, he's got a more eloquent way of saying it, but it was essentially that the movies are fueled by like fun and humor. Like, the more of that you have, the more you can be scary. It's like you get a horror token every time you crack a joke. And if you watch the original Jurassic Park and you sit there with a clicker, there's way more jokes than you give credit. There's a lot of humor in that film, but you wouldn't walk away going it's a comedy. And you wouldn't walk away going it's a horror, because they sort of balance each other out. And that's what we tried to do. We tried to make it fun and funny, but then serious and a bit shocking. And so it's like, there's always a moment where you've got the audience in a certain feeling, and you go, okay, now we can do a really funny joke, right? And then after a bit of humor, you go, okay, now we can scare the shit out of them. Do you know what I mean? So it's like this little back and forth that can happen. So
the John Williams score, I alluded to it earlier. You talked about, manipulating is the wrong word when it comes to audience emotion, but you got to pick those right moments to make them feel scared, make them feel happy, make them cheer. That John Williams score has to come in at the right exact moment, that first needle drop when we hear it. Talk to me about the decision of where you placed it in this movie, because I don't want to give full context, but the first time it came in that sweeping motion, like the hair on my arm stood up. Like, that must have been as someone who's proclaimed to be like a student of the game of someone like Spielberg, to use a score that is so iconic to his films, that must have just been such a career achievement.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you're going to play that card probably at some point. I mean, that was like one of the first conversations. Like, you look at Alexander Desplat, who wrote the score, and you go, and he was like, we're gonna do the theme at some point, right? And I was like, yeah, where? And well, let's just experiment. And so we played a game of like, if it could only be one place, where's it gonna go, right? If you're only gonna play it once, where are you gonna put it? And that's a dilemma, because I wanted it at the end credits, right? Like, I was like, it's gotta come at the end credits. And then the problem was, but then you haven't really used it in the movie. And so there was somewhere else where I was like, okay, maybe we can get away with doing it there as well. And so we tried versions. We were asked to try versions without it anywhere. And I showed that version to some people just as an experiment, praying it didn't work. Because I was like, you want that theme? I would, as a fan, I'd be really disappointed, but certain people wanted to try it, so I did. And then as soon as they said, they're like, yeah, you're right, put it back in. And so it basically was very strategic, very minimal. And then beauty, like the great moment, as I was having to do a publicity thing whilst we were scoring the movie at Abbey Road. There was a 100-piece orchestra, and I had to go and do this one thing that the studio say you have to do it. And I was like, okay, but please don't record the theme, the John Williams moment, whilst I'm away. And so as I was away, I had heard, and I think they were just teasing me, that they had recorded it, so I'd missed it. And I was like, no, no. And I came in really sad back to the Abbey Road, like, and then they were like, oh, we were joking. No, we haven't recorded it, and we're going to do it today. And so you get to sit there, and I got to sit on the steps where all the Beatles had recorded all their albums and everything. And there was Alexander Splat, 100-piece orchestra. There was a guy called Conrad Pope, who was also the orchestrator for the film. Who orchestrated the original Jurassic Park. And it just felt like we were in this holy kind of church-like sacred ground. And then the theme began. And it's one of those things, you know, where you want to take a picture or video it. And I was like, put the phone away. Just suck it up, right? Just live in this moment. It's never going to happen again. And I just looked at all the players that were doing it, and they'd all obviously chosen a career in playing on soundtracks, you know. And you just knew, you could see in all their faces, this was a movie that made them want to do this. And when it ended, you could just feel everyone was like, okay, bucket list ticked, you know. It just felt like a really special moment that'll never happen again.
Do you journal?
No.
No, I recommend that. If you can't capture a moment with a photo or a video, sometimes you have those moments and you don't want to forget the memory, and you write it down in your own handwriting, and you revisit it a couple years later, and it's immortalized in handwriting. It's no longer just a memory up in your brain. So it's a nice way to tap back in.
I do that with sort of story ideas.
Nice.
As soon as I get an idea, I'm late for meetings sometimes. I get an idea on the way there and I start writing it down. But yeah.
Survival is a long shot.
That's kind of our specialty.